So this will be, just to make sure, about the Applied Computer Science Bachelor in Cybersecurity at Howest. Let's dive into that immediately. We actually in cybersecurity are dividing the courses into 3 big segments. The first one is a segment that most of our students like very much. It's offensive security, and it's about network and system pen testing, web pen testing, reverse engineering and malware analysis, and some emergent security techniques. I'll explain a little bit more about all of these later on. In defensive security, where you're actually going to defend against the attackers. In offensive security, you're gonna pretend to be the attacker. In defensive security, you're gonna defend against the attackers. We're gonna see courses in web security and honeypots, Windows and Linux server security, network and CCNA, so Cisco security, forensic analysis, secure development, and more. And still, our students most of the students like the defensive security as well. Where most of the students are not so much in favor of is the security management, which is something you absolutely need, because security management is needed to go. You're not living in a vacuum when you're at work, and you will need to explain to your management why you want certain security, how much it's going to cost. What the threats are out there, and what the laws are. So that's why you find topics like data privacy and IT law there, cybercrime, security management, and threat and risk assessment. So let's dive into all of these a little bit more. The first one is the one that I give myself actually, and that's only been added last year. That's about cybersecurity fundamentals. Because we noticed that the students got a lot of topics about different areas of security, but they couldn't see the global picture, the whole picture of cybersecurity. And that's what we actually try to do in cybersecurity fundamentals. Cybersecurity is about securing the things that are vulnerable through ICT. Considers where data is stored and technologies used to secure that data. Part of the cybersecurity is about the protection of information and communications technology. It is about the hardware and software, which is known as ICT security. And there is an overlap between cybersecurity and information security, but cybersecurity will in principle not include the protection of analog information, but will include that in some of the courses about IT security management anyway, because you need it there. It's not excluded if you talk about ICT management. One important topic that information security does not cover, but that we will cover, is operational technology. So operational technology is the opposite of information technology. Information technology is the administrative part. Operation technology, then you're talking about the factory or production floor, robots, machines, interconnected machines, machines connected to the administration, and so on. And you'll see that there is a lot less security there, and that you have to be very inventive to implement correct security there. What you'll also will see is about cybercrime, crime in cyberspace. That covers a lot of topics, because you'll talk about casual hacking, thinking about the hacks done to iCloud account from famous Hollywood stars, for instance, students hacking a company for fun. It's also about fraud, trying to obtain money, identity theft, scamming, computer viruses, ransomware, DDoS attacks, so distributed attacks, denial of service, botnets, spamming, phishing, social engineering, malvertising, cyberstalking. You also have software piracy, child pornography, cyberbullying, cyber terrorism, and cyber spying. So you will cover the whole range of cybercrime. And in that, you can make a distinction between individual, company, organization, and government as actors actually as cyber criminals. And you learn specifically about the legislation, which technologies are used, and how to cooperate with the police force. Because we're the good guys. Don't make any mistake. We're teaching all of you to become the good guys. So how to cooperate with the police force is very important. Then there is actually one course that I like specifically because I've also been a coach for it the last semester, and that's web pen testing. And there you learn about what web pen testing is, and it's not a secret. It has to do with the web and see if you can penetrate the systems from the web. So from the outside, it's about attacks from the outside on web servers, websites, and so on. It includes web authentication and see if you can break that, cross-scripting, which is executing dangerous code from a supposedly safe website, SQL injection, injecting HTML and CSS. Sessions and cookies are very important, sensitive data exposure, see what you can get from a website, and remote code execution. Note that we are teaching you this, but that you'll always need approval from the website manager to execute these attacks. We actually had a student who at a certain moment came in, oh, I tried this on several websites and it's fun because I find a lot of flaws. And we asked him, did you have permission? No. Well, then you're breaking the law and you could go to jail. So it's actually pretty severe. You could go to jail. So web pen testing is actually, you would be amazed how many websites are still vulnerable, but be careful with it because you're breaking the law if you do this without permission. Website testing is actually one of the things that you would probably start with if you want to, if a company asks you, okay, how secure are we from the outside and from the inside? Well, you normally start from the outside, and that's what you do in web pen testing. Another thing where you could pen testing is penetration testing on is, of course, the inside. So you're going to test the system and the network for flaws to see if you can get in some way. And that you could do automated with all kinds of tools that we talk about, or manually. And actually, you could also try it from the outside, but then it's related to web pen testing. So you first have to get in, and then you have to start from the inside doing certain things. And sometimes it can be that you have insider knowledge, or sometimes it's without insider knowledge. It's called black box, white box. And with or without access, user access or privileged. So there are different possibilities which you can have there. A good example of system flaws can be that they use default passwords, for instance, that some systems don't have the latest version of the software or the operating system, which means that you can exploit certain vulnerabilities which they have. It can be that the personnel is not educated very well, so that you can actually do some social engineering, phishing, and so on. That's about penetration testing. You'll also learn about malware analysis, which will teach you to analyze samples of viruses or malware, sometimes malicious ones, but we're going to teach to do that in a safe way. And you're going to learn how to find out what they do, how they work, and what you can use specifically to identify the malware. It will only focus on, because that's already a big territory, on Windows-based software, but the knowledge which you get, you can use on other platforms as well. And we also will learn you about static analysis, which means you get the code and you analyze the code without running it, versus dynamic analysis, which is analyzing actually dynamically what the software does, observing it and looking at it, what it does. I think we have some very, very good teachers there who have a lot of experience, who actually go to companies there and do exactly this malware analysis. An extension of that, you could say, is reverse engineering, and that's really dissecting the programs and software with a very important purpose. You want to understand what happened specifically or what's going to happen if you install that malware. In Wikipedia says reverse engineering is the process of discovering the technological principles of a device, an object, or a system through analysis of its structure, function, and operation. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to become familiar with the different ways of doing this. We're going to learn you some ins and outs, some tips and tricks, and it's again purely Windows code, which is still the largest platform for malware, I have to say. Here we're going to learn you how to disassemble code, which is a static analysis, and debugging, which is actually dynamic. If we then go to forensic analysis, which is another topic that you learn about, is, and this some people have difficulty with, okay, but we're looking at cybercrime. Is forensic analysis not very much related? Well, it's another angle. Because what you're going to do here is look at how to preserve your evidence and do an investigation of what happened. Where is patient zero? How did he get infected, hacked, and so on. For those of you who've seen CSI, it's very popular in the US and in Europe, but maybe not everywhere. But there is a series called CSI where a team is going to investigate, looking for proof and so on site. And there is actually one, there are three that just look for physical evidence, don't have anything to do with computer, but there is one CSI IT or CSI computer, and that's really focusing on what you're going to do here, forensic analysis. So you're going to learn you how to analyze memory, the network, the physical media, the volumes, the file systems, and application analysis. It's going to go through the forensic process, learn you everything about hard disks, SSD, fundamentals, look at volumes, partitions, bootloaders, how does that work and how can that help you, Windows and Linux file systems, and how you work with those operating systems with forensics. And we're going to also do some live forensics, data acquisition on live systems, because the problem is often the company wants to move on, but you as a forensic analyst, you need to get your evidence. So you have to be able to do this as fast as possible. And we're going to explain to you how you do that. So another thing you learn a lot about, and which actually lies at the basis of a lot of security, it's a tool. It's not security in itself, but it's a tool used to create security, and that's cryptography. You will learn to understand and apply how to encrypt and decrypt messages and the difference between encrypting and coding messages. There's a big difference. People sometimes say, yeah, but it's the same. No, it's not the same. And we'll learn you what the difference is. We'll also learn you the difference with hashing, how you hash a message and verify. Hashing is not encryption, but it's part of cryptography. Very interesting is we learn you how to a digital signature works, how you can sign and verify in the digital world. We'll talk about symmetric and asymmetric algorithms. You'll even learn how they work, and you will practice them yourselves. We'll also learn, because you need keys with cryptography, passwords if you want to, and how you manage all of these, how you exchange this with the partner that you want to communicate with, and what a public key infrastructure is for and how it works. In information security management, and like I said, this is very important, a very important topic, because it helps you convince your management that security is important. It also helps you explain to them what it costs and what the threat landscape is. So really why they have to do it. So you learn about some security best practices and standards like ISO 27001, the NIST cybersecurity framework. You learn about the COVID framework and so on. So you also learn, except for those standards, about risk assessment. Because if there would be no risk, you wouldn't need security. So the first thing we need to know is, what is at risk? Where are we at risk? Where can the hackers come in? What can happen and will pose a threat to the company, and will cost us money, which results in a risk. Where you need to think of your environment, what could happen, what you could do, taking into account the cost, the probabilities, and the potential impact. You'll also learn about threat intelligence-driven security, where once you have the basic defense in place, you're going to study your attackers. Who's going to attack? Why are they going to attack? And using this active intelligence, you're going to build up your defenses. So not just consuming data from different sources, but really using it to build up your defenses. In data privacy, this will be a little bit more about legal stuff. You'll learn about IT and intellectual property, IPR. You learn about electronic business and what the legal requirements are. You learn about digital signature and proof, about ICT contracts, privacy, the European General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. You learn about camera legislation, when that can be used and when not. You learn about the legislation on cybercrime, and you will get some case studies. And you will learn about what's called casuistry, which is extracting rules from actual cases. Moving on to industrial security, like I said, also industrial systems are vulnerable. What can happen, for instance, with them? For instance, a virus, which works perfectly well on Windows, will try to infect an industrial PC, which runs a Windows system, and a very old Windows system very often, or even a PLC. Some of these commands which the virus will try or the malware will try might block the machine, which means loss of production time and work, and sometimes even risk to physical security. Some of these industrial machines have legacy PC systems or dedicated hardware running them. There are some flaws like weak passwords, in some cases even no passwords at all, so they need to be protected in another way, and we'll learn you how to do that. And an attack on a production system can cost human lives, like I said. A robot going berserk. Think about if you could sabotage the cooling of a nuclear plant, take down an electricity grid or something like that. Will cause a lot of disruption, can cost human life as well, because traffic lights will not work anymore. Same with the rail network, and so on and so on. So all of these need to be protected as well. Here you see a little bit how your semesters will look like. So you have 6 semesters, 3 bachelor years. The last semester, as you can see, is focused on your internship, where you will work in a company, sometimes an international company. So a lot of our students go abroad, and where you will do your bachelor thesis, where there are some seminars, study visits and challenges, but for most you're going to focus time on your internship and your bachelor thesis. You'll start in semester 1, of course, and there you have, except for the security topics, which is not a lot in the first year, you'll have my cybersecurity fundamentals. But as we don't demand that people have prerequisites about computers and computer programming and so on, we have to teach everybody. So we're going to learn you about hardware and desktop operating systems and computer networks. We're going to learn you about programming. We're going to learn you about databases and application prototyping. We're going to do some problem solving, which is actually a little bit cryptography fundamentals. It's math, but it helps when we talk about cryptography later. We're going to do some software development, which is done in Python, to be clear. We're going to do web development, and web development, I have to say, is very important. That if you have the opportunity to learn some JavaScript before and some HTML before HTML and CSS, before you start your first semester, you will have a head start, because we noticed that a lot of students fail in web development the first semester. We also have web, mobile and security, where we talk about server-side scripting, responsive design, and web pen testing, which actually is a security part, but it's hidden in web, mobile and security. We'll also talk about IT solutions like e-business. We'll explain a little bit how project communication works. That all continues over in semester 3, semester 4, semester 5, but with more and more focus on security. Each semester, except the first semester, you'll have a project to do. And that project will learn you to work together, because we want our students to be ready to start in a company that learns you how to work with other people, how to communicate, and so on. Important to mention is that, of course, you will have an exam in January and you will have an exam in June. And let's hope that then you don't have an exam end of August, because that's when you have to redo your exam. But we also have an exam after the autumn break. And the exam after the autumn break is there so that actually you as a student and your parents can evaluate, is this the right bachelor for me? Is this the right direction that I have to go? Or I think still it's the right direction, but I might have to improve on certain topics, or I might have to study a little bit different because I really like this and I want to succeed. And it allows you to get some feedback also from the lectures and for yourself to see how you've been doing. So that you don't have to wait until January, but you can already correct a little bit before January. Then I also want to say that you will be studying in Bruges, which is the perfect city for students. It's called Bruges, the Fair City, and it's a very beautiful city. The historic center is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. You share the city with tourists from all over the world. That mix works perfectly because wherever you go, people will speak English in Bruges, because there's so many tourists also that it's a given that they speak English. It also offers a wide range of pastimes. You can relax on the terrace, you can exercise in the green spaces, see the canals, for which Bruges is well known. It's called the Venice of the North. You can enjoy one of the many restaurants or bars with your fellow students. It's an inspiring city for students, really. And we'll help you, of course. We have an organization called Stuvo that will help you with all the practical things that you need to do when you come here, like registering yourself at the community hall or the city hall, and so on and so on. So my last slide is actually about where you can find all the requirements and the application process. I actually already put that in the chat. We use a web app which is called DreamApply for that application process. It is useful if you register, sorry, that was a little bit too early. If you register yourself also on the web registration form, reminder that this is not an application, but to reserve your place. You'll have to finish the web registration once you receive the acceptance letter anyway. But the most important one is where you can find all the requirements and the application process. Very important, because we're the 26th of June now. The deadline for non-EU students is June 30th, 2021 to start your application for academic year 21-22. So if you want to start studying in September, at least go to this website, go to the DreamApply app, and start your application process. Once you start your application process, you have more time to send in the documents and so on. Not everything has to be finished by June the 30th, but you have to start before June the 30th. Okay, this was my presentation. I'm gonna take some questions, but I'm just gonna finish the recording at this moment. Because
hello, thank you so much for this webinar. It was really